Thank you for joining us for this week's edition of Southwest Connections. I'm your host, Bill Malso, and we're happy to be with you again today to talk about some of the people and great activities happening here at Southwest. My guest today is Executive Director of Enrollment Management, Rich Shearer. Welcome, Rich.
Thanks for having me. This is great.
Glad to have you here and glad to have you back on campus.
Thanks. Yeah, it's been a lot of fun. With homecoming just taking place, I saw a lot of people from the past, and it was really wonderful. It's nice to make all those connections all over again.
So I talk about this being back, your second coming. Tell us a little bit about yourself and how you did end up back here at Southwest.
Let's go back to the first time. I came here in 1993, but changed course and left in 2008. I did an early retirement and was doing some substitute teaching when you called that day, and I happened to be in a middle school, and I was like, yes, get me out of here. But so coming back, I had the opportunity. Thank you that Kumara had asked if I could come back and then do an interim role in the executive director for enrollment management, which a lot of people wonder what exactly is that. We can get into that in a moment. But so then I came back in November of 19 and have been here ever since. So.
You've had quite a career in the admission and enrollment management field. Tell us a little bit about where you were prior to coming here to Southwest the first time.
Actually started off way back in Northern Montana College doing the admission counselor thing. Went to North Dakota State. Was there admission counselor, did an interim, was associate director and even did an interim director for a brief moment, and then had the opportunity to come here in 93 as director of admission. So, yeah.
We've had the pleasure of working together for a long time.
Yes, so. That's right. Yes, I remember when people asked if we were cheerleaders because we were talking about what it took, the brand. That was nice. That was good.
People are really familiar a lot of times with the admission side of things, but enrollment management really is a broad area here at SMSU. What departments fall under our enrollment management team?
And you phrased it well, because at Southwest, because at every school it's almost different. And I think what I appreciate about how this has been shaped is it meets the needs of Southwest. What's good for us, not on a national scale. But what I have right now is financial aid, domestic admission, international admission, and then pretty heavy dotted lines to the recruitment function of graduate studies and online learning. So what I do is I have what I call the enrollment portals meeting, and it's the people who admit into the university. And we've added on to that, like Office of Diversity and Inclusion attends those meetings, financial aid includes those meetings, even though they don't admit, but they support that. And so we all get together and talk about what's working, what's not working, where the resources lie, because one of the things we have is, or we can't have, is silos. And so we have to find ways to flatten out the structure and share resources.
One of the things that everyone's excited about this fall was to welcome a really nice big class, and it's really a great group of new students. Tell us a little bit about what makes up this group.
Well, the domestic students have continued to go up. I think that was in the 5 to 6% range, which is just phenomenal on any scale. But when you added in the international students, and then that's where it blasted us up to that, 13% or whatever. I tend not to focus too much on that because I've seen it reverse. So I want to watch myself. But the important thing there is it was domestic students as well as the international students. When I talk about domestic students, one thing that we're really pleased with is currently the Division II athletics that we have attract students from all over the country. And so we're seeing that, whether it be from football, volleyball, baseball, whomever, we're seeing that. But we saw a boost from the area too, which again, we are the University for Southwest Minnesota. And so it's nice to see students coming from there. The international students had a large group from Ethiopia, which I think is interesting. It's similar to what you and I have both seen with students from the area. Students come here, have a positive experience, and they're telling people. And so we expect to see more. And I've already seen some reports, early reports of applications for international students for spring semester. We could be looking at a nice group of students coming in then too. The Ethiopian students coming in January might have a different experience than those coming in August, but again, we'll see a good group.
And I think that's what's really, really fun about this is that it's a very diverse group of students from where they're at.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we've got students obviously from around the region, around the country, and around the world. So
Yep.
how do you go about meeting those students where they are at?
That is a really good question, Bill, because the pandemic just threw everything out. For instance, in the old days, 2 years ago, we would do college fairs face to face. I'd be talking to you across a table. Minnesota's all virtual right now, and so we are not seeing the kind of traffic that we might have seen at a high school gymnasium college fair. So we have to find other ways. We're still working with different vendors who, like ACT, those types of things. When a student signs up for that test, they can check I want to be recruited. Then ACT sells us their names, and so we've functioned that way. We need to function more broadly on, if there was a volleyball camp over the weekend, we need to capture more of that. It's kind of the price of admission, so to speak, for being at the university. But I think in terms of getting to students, we've got virtual high school visits going on. We just met with 2, what I will call opinion leaders from the metro area that deal with students of color. And they're struggling to reach their students because the students haven't been in school because of lockdown. And so how do they do that? And so we really have made some progress on how we might do that. It's still relationships. It's still about relationships and about positive experience for the students that are here.
You talked about COVID, and obviously it seems like you can't have any conversation nowadays without talking about it in some way. I know it's changed the way you've had to recruit students. Has it uncovered anything for you that's like, hey, this really works? I think we might continue to do that.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a lot of students who they're okay with that virtual stuff. There's a lot who aren't, but think of it this way. One of the things we're finding with the Zoom enabled meeting is that I might say to you, a student, say, hey, give me a half hour on a Saturday morning. It's all I ask for. And the best practices don't say it's a full-blown admission program. It's going to, this Saturday morning, we're going to focus on financial aid for a half hour. That's it. Next Saturday, we're going to talk about advising for a half hour. That's it. And that way, whether it's a shorter attention span, whether it's a busy life, whether it's, it's Saturday morning, I want to sleep in, we're still able to get our message across. And some of it's changing with the emails. Nobody reads emails anymore, if they did. And so we're trying to figure out policies related to texting students. Usually those would be a very, very specific call to action. So we're trying, pulling out all the stops as well as all this different social medias that myself as an older person just don't understand. So
it's always changing too. That's the fun part
Yes.
about it. So, what are some of the characteristics that you're seeing from today's college students versus what you maybe would have seen traditionally?
Well, and again, I have to be careful being a boomer that I don't, throw a blanket over all students entering in. But I think one of the things we're finding is they want the face-to-face. We did some engagement stuff activities earlier this fall, and we found the students want to get out of their rooms. They want to engage. There's a certain number who have their battle station set up in their residence hall and they're playing their games or whatever. They'll come out on their own time. So what we have to do is create those times for them to come out, whether it's a Dungeons and Dragons, whether it's a trivia, whether it's a different outdoor activity. Those where they want to be engaged, but they engage on their own time. So forcing an orientation into the traditional model is not the way we should do it. What we found too was pushing out videos via D2L that they could live in their distance to learn or desire to learn site that parents can then access so that they can then be part of it. I think there again, it's another one, family connections. There's still the family connection is in some ways even more important than in the past. So, there's you're walking students through what they need to do. Most of them will do it. You just have to tell them what to do. So
They still need the same information. They still want that engagement, but they're just doing it in a different way.
they consume it differently. Yeah. Yes, absolutely.
So a big part of enrollment management is retention. And for those that don't know, it's really how you retain a student from one year to the next. And so it's really a key part of enrollment management. What are some of the best practices that you and your team encourage students to follow to kind of help with that retention from their first year as a student here at SMSU to having a successful second year?
You're right, is a running challenge that we encourage students. There's, best practices nationally would say there's still a simple set of steps that a student follows. For instance, career services. Go to career services, set up a resume, set up, so that you can look for those part-time jobs on campus. Connect with your advisor. Make connections in the residence halls, RAs, other residents, and then get involved in clubs and organizations. So it's a lot of those pieces that are there. But the hard part for me is we put them on a list. I put them in a nice list. We put them in a nice publication. I go, here they are. But it's getting the student to step out and take part in those things. It's a difficult part. And that's on us. We have to do a better job of making sure students get connected. Some would call it intrusive, but if we're walking across campus and we see a student who just doesn't look happy, we have to be self-aware enough to say, hey, how you doing? And just check in with that student, because that's, again, they're going to do it on their time when they're ready, and that's what we have to just be ready for. So, but we are lucky enough to get a grant. It's called the Success Grant. And I think you had Brittany Kroll on to talk about that. That's a wonderful program. We're looking at ways to start to say, we'd love to have you admitted. We'd love to have you a student with us. But here's what we're going to do. You have to do this, this, and this. And I think that if parents knew it and understood it, they would want their child to be involved with it. So,
and I think that's, one of the hard parts is we've got a lot of great programs and services. How do we get students to take advantage of them?
Exactly.
If you had that answer,
I would be a millionaire and we wouldn't be having this conversation. But yeah, exactly. And you and I have had the conversation about putting those publications together where we have all these resources for students. And then during the whole cycle of learning about the university, applying to the university, being admitted, registering, we're talking to those parents and family members and opinion leaders all the way through the process. So when that student gets here, there's no way they didn't know about it. So we have to keep hammering with that. And it's, I think I heard it from a student the other day. She had to find help in her computer science class. And so she went around and she finally summoned the courage to walk up to another guy and to say, hey, can you help me with this? Or do you understand this? And it was a project. He understood this piece fine, but that wasn't the piece she understood. And she understood stuff he didn't understand. So they were able to exchange. Students can't do it themselves anymore. And that's not a knock on their abilities. It's just a fact. They have to find others to help with. So group study is a big piece of that.
Part of retention is getting involved in the community too. And, we talk about our SMSU community, but the Marshall community is a big factor too. And we're always pushing students to get out in the community and learn a little bit about it and get involved. What are some things that Marshall community members can do or the community itself can do to help students feel welcomed and active out in the community?
Well, I love those during homecoming. There was those posters that a newspaper had and you could put up in your window. And I love it when I see those things because I think it just, whether it be subliminal or not, a student looks at that and say, that's me. I'm welcome here. And I think just welcoming the students into the community, understanding that students are college students, but at the same time, it's all teachable moments. It's how can we have this great community? This is a future workforce. It's future families for the community. As you saw in homecoming, there's a lot of alumni that are still around the area, and it just enriches everything because of what they brought here originally. So I think just providing activities, providing a smiling face, and just welcoming students is wonderful. It's a great way of doing it. At local restaurant on Sunday morning, and lots of SMSU stuff. And that's huge because it just reinforced homecoming, reinforced that this is the place to be.
So fall obviously is one of the most important times in the recruitment cycle, the recruitment season, if you will. What are some of the activities that you have, and what would you encourage students and their families to take part in this fall?
Well, I think with anything, it's come visit. We've been fortunate enough we're at a size where we can deal with families when they come and visit, not these huge auditoriums full of visitors and everything. We can deal with students when they can come, and we'll set up visits, we'll set up faculty appointments, tours. Now this, a week from Thursday and Friday is Education Minnesota, so there's 2 days off of school for students. Come visit. We've got some programs set up. We're going to have an academic fair where they can see multiple faculty from different departments. So if they're not sure what they want to go into, just walk from table to table. And just, I guess, peruse the website, look at it, see, is this me? That's the big thing. One of the things we pride ourselves on is small campus, people know you. I know that sounds horribly cliche, but it's true here. It's phenomenal. I was talking to a faculty member, and I mentioned the American Rescue Plan funds, and she said, "Great, I need that information because I was just ready to send all my advisees an email." And she's already on it. And this is a faculty member that has come forward before, pitching hard for her students. And so that's the thing I appreciate the most, is they care about them. They really do.
So October 21st and 22nd are those visit days, and great opportunity to come to campus, and it's always a beautiful time of year. So
yeah, that's right.
Come and check it out.
We'll try and keep it, it's always 78 and sunny inside, right? Because we're totally connected. So even if it's raining, we'll take care of them.
Absolutely. So Rich, one last question for you, and I know you have this answer, but you have to shorten it up. If you could tell a prospective student and their family why SMSU is the place for them, what would it be?
I often will say I'll let the admission counselors talk about the facts and figures, but I just want to address the Southwest that I know. And that is the ones where I see someone like you who went here and found a life here and created a community here. And that's so important because there's so many campuses where there's no sense of community. Students they go to class, they go back to the residence halls, that's about it. We have that sense of community. People know each other here. Saturday's game didn't necessarily go the way we wanted, but those are our friends, those are our roommates out on the field. And so that's why we're here. We're here supporting them. And that's the sense that you get here. There's those who would say, I don't want that. I want big city lights or whatever. That's fine. But there's a lot of people who want a connection, and we have that.
Thank you, Rich. Appreciate you joining us today.
No problem.
As Rich mentioned, October is a really important month in the recruitment process. October is also free application month. So any student that applies here at Southwest during the month of October, it is free. There's no fee associated with that. So we encourage students to not only come out and visit, but it's a great time to apply for admission as well. I encourage you to check out all the fun events and activities going on. There's a lot of things on campus. You can stay up to date on our website at smsu.edu, or check us out on all the social media channels at SMSU Today. Once again, thank you to Rich Shearer for joining us today. Tune again in 2 weeks when I'll be joined by Dr. Kristen Kovar, Associate Professor of Agriculture Education here at SMSU. Thanks for watching.